filmmakers have found a ton of different ways to gloriously fool those opting to take in their picture. Some of the finest directors of their generation made their sets look massive, and actors looked like they were speeding through the streets via some truly wonderful tools and tricks. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture, and here are 8 even more movie scenes you didn't realize were tricking you. Number 8, Sophia Lillis wasn't available for the ending, so they blue-screened her in. Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Last year's Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves turned out to be one of 2023's biggest pleasant surprises, with the fantastic big-screen adaptation of the titular role-playing game, containing a ton of charming characters, thrilling action, and just the right amount of silliness. One pleasant surprise no one actually spotted during that Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley directed flick, however, popped up towards the end of the D&D ride. As noted by Francis Daley on X almost a year after the critical hit underperformed at the box office, the wonderful Sophia Lillis wasn't actually available to shoot the ace hero shot involving her druid Doric, Justice Smith's sorcerer Simon Omar, and Michelle Rodriguez's barbarian Holger Kilgore. So to get around her absence due to having to shoot Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, Lillis shot her moments in front of a blue screen. The film's masterful VFX team then seamlessly added her into the scene afterwards. If you didn't know any better, you'd assume Lillis was very much there on the day, jogging alongside her co-stars when this brief team-up moment was originally shot. But you are actually just being brilliantly tricked via some good old movie magic. What was your favourite flick of last year? Was it Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves or something else? You let me know in the comments section down below. Number 7, they used Selena's voice instead of J-Lo's, Selena. The prior version of this secret trick stuff list mentioned how Ben Affleck once found his voice being surprisingly dubbed over during one of his first real big screen roles. And it turns out his equally famous wife Jennifer Lopez also experienced something similar during the making of the 1997 biographical musical Selena. Lopez played the titular singing superstar in the movie that told the story of Selena Quintanilla's meteoric rise and eventual death at just 23 years old. However, though Lopez would go on to forge her own rather iconic music career, she didn't actually perform the majority of the warbling seen in the scenes in the finished flick. Unlike Affleck, Lopez was well aware of the fact the production had opted to dub Selena's real singing over the actors' performances in the movie. But the majority of those who have sat down to watch the flick since its release in the mid-90s though, likely had no idea they largely weren't actually listening to Jenny from the Block's impressive voice here. J-Lo sang just 3 words in the entire movie, kicking off the Como the Floor song at the Monterey concert. Other than that, all of the magnificent singing heard in the movie that helped make Lopez herself a superstar came from the late great Selena. Number 6, an inflatable crowd was used, the King's Speech. In a perfect world, just about every director on planet Earth would prefer to bring in an entirely real capacity crowd for those big screen moments involving a large group of people sitting in one place. But gathering over 1,000 extras together for the shooting of one scene sometimes just is not possible. So when it came time to capture the moment Colin Firth's King George VI stuttered his way through a speech at Wembley Stadium during Tom Hooper's 2010 eventual Oscar winner The King's Speech, the call was made to bring in some blow-up backup. That's right, many of the folks seen watching the King in this opening scene weren't actually folks at all. They were inflatable extras. These full-of-air extras were first used for Seabiscuit in 2002, with Joe Biggins being the person behind what would ultimately become known as the Inflatable Crowd Company. Each blow-up doll is given a mask and costume before being seamlessly added into the background, alongside some real people to fool you into thinking you were watching a fully alive crowd. So next time you check out this King's first speech in the flick, just know that he's also being watched by 1,500 inflatables. Number 5, giant rings were used for close-ups. The Lord of the Rings. It's no secret that the marvelous Peter Jackson and the rest of the terrific crew who helped bring the Lord of the Rings trilogy to the big screen were fond of a little tool known as force perspective. These optical illusions help fool folks into believing that what they're seeing is either bigger or smaller than it actually is in reality, with the great Sir Ian McKellen often being positioned much closer to the camera in order to make his Hobbit co-stars look smaller, for example. But one lesser known use of that magical trick can be found during a few of the scenes involving the One Ring the Fellowship are trying so desperately to destroy once and for all. For some of the moments that required the process to be in a close-up shot, a massive version of the little gold piece of jewelry was made, though not in the fires of Mount Doom, presumably. In fact, a staggering 40+ different versions of the One Ring were created by Jens Hansen Jewelry for the iconic features in the end, with viewers being tricked into thinking they were watching a little ring of power during the movie's opening, for example. It was actually a huge 8-inch One Ring to rule them all here. Cheers for checking out this video today. Hit that subscribe button down below if you want to see more what culture on that screen. This is not a trick. Number 4, the actors weren't actually driving during certain moments. Baby Driver. Baby Driver. While it may have often looked like Ansel Elgort's baby was doing much of the drifting and speeding himself throughout Edgar Wright's exhilarating ride that is Baby Driver, that was largely just one big high-speed trick. You see, though the actors seen reacting within these vehicles during the various chase and escape scenes were very much present within the cars during the shooting of the scenes, they weren't actually required to do as much driving as you think. Instead, the majority of the perilous screeching and flying down roads was performed by stunt driver Jeremy Fry, who often found himself strapped into a cage above the vehicle as he genuinely pushed the pedal to the metal above the actors being shot on camera below. Having Fry be the one in control of everything the car did during these moments meant that Elgort, John Hamm, and whoever else was seated in the automobile could purely concentrate on their performance. Sure, the star bringing Baby to life did get to perform a few of his own stunts, ones that didn't put his co-stars at risk at least, but a ton of that close-up getaway driving action was actually done by a fearless person sat on top of or the side of the speeding car. Now you know. Number 3, the pencil trick wasn't actually CGI, The Dark Knight. Easily one of the most iconic magic tricks ever to pop up on the big screen, Heath Ledger's ability to make a pencil suddenly disappear in The Dark Knight is about as chilling as it gets. For such an utterly sickening moment of brutality then, you'd be forgiven for assuming that even the very much anti-CGI Christopher Nolan would have had no choice but to resort to using digital wizardry to pull off the moment head met lead. Or maybe they used prosthetics to achieve the gruesome killing of a henchman by the Clown Prince of Crime. Nope, the team behind the project actually just shot a version of the scene with the pencil very much on the table, and then one without it. When head hit table, no pencil was present of course, though a few of the shots Nolan wanted did still require actor Charles Jarman to quickly knock the pencil away before his skull came crashing down on the table, a move that resulted in Jarman being knocked out a few times. Thanks to the magic of editing, most viewers were left presuming they'd simply witnessed some rather slick CGI in the finished flick, when in reality this was actually a surprisingly real trick created through masterful editing and a bit of occasionally painful stunt work. Number 2, short extras were cast to make the set look bigger, Titanic. Joining Leonardo DiCaprio's Jack and Kate Winslet's Rose on the doomed ocean liner known as the Titanic were an awful lot of guests and crew members. So James Cameron was always going to require a ton of extras to fill out the background in various scenes during his eventual 1997 hit. Instead of booking a great many inflatable dummies to chuck into these moments, however, Cameron had to hire the real deal, didn't he? But it was during that extras casting process when the director had a brilliant idea. The mind behind Avatar and Aliens obviously wanted to get as much value as possible out of his rather expensive and already quite large set. His plan? Only casting extras that were under 5'8", with these shorter actors tricking audiences into believing they were taking in a set that was even bigger than it actually was. In Cameron's own words to the Los Angeles Times, "We only cast short extras so it made our set look bigger. Anybody above 5'8", we didn't cast them. It's like we got an extra $1 million of value out of casting." Though even that creative casting trick still couldn't stop the movie from becoming the most expensive one ever made at the time. Number 1, a fully CGI horse was secretly used at points, Mulan 2020. Make no mistake, a lot of very real horse riding definitely went down in the 2020 live-action remake of the Disney classic known as Mulan, and a ton of said traveling via horse was performed by the star bringing the titular warrior to life on screen, Ife Lu. However, there was a moment there when the actor wasn't actually able to hop on her steed, with Mulan being required to jump onto her horse, Blackwind, and ride it through rough snow at one point in the movie. It was clear that this was a sequence that needed to be created digitally. So So Ife ultimately hopped onto a mechanical buck as she galloped in front of a green screen for the scene, involving Mulan escaping an incoming avalanche. From here, the geniuses at Imageworks went about creating a super realistic digital version of Black Wind that Ife would then be seen convincingly moving on in the end. The end results are so damn believable, it's still tough to accept that the gorgeous horse seen racing away from the digital snow here is also an entirely CG creation. But you better believe that particular horse was anything but real, folks, and you were being remarkably tricked during this particular ride.